Welcome to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. I am your host, Steve Anderson, and today our guest is Dr. Jennifer Berry, who is a transformational leader driving purposeful collaboration between education, industry, and community ecosystems. As CEO of SmartLab, she champions mission-driven innovation that equips learners for tomorrow's workforce and fosters systematic change that matters for partners, funders, and communities. Her work accelerates strategic partnerships, measurable outcomes, and shared impact at scale. I should also note that she's won an award for the top 50 women leaders of 2025. She is also was recognized for women making history in STEM education in 2025, and she sits on multiple board seats. So, Dr. Berry, welcome to the program. It's great to have you on today.
Thank you, Steve. I'm so happy to be on. Thanks for having me.
So let's just start with a little context, as I usually do. Give us a little history on where you grew up and kind of how you got into this field and what were some of your early influences. So just give us some background here to start with.
Yeah, that's great. I am from New York parents, but
Okay.
I grew up in Los Angeles, California. So it's an interesting combination.
Ah, good.
A lot of people meet me, they're like, "Oh, you must be from New York," because I have a little bit of an edge to me. But then they realize quickly when I tell them, "No, I grew up in the Valley of Los Angeles. I am a true Valley girl through and through." Then they realize I sort of have that mix between my parents who were born and raised and married and all the things in New York and my California edges that are a little bit softer. So that's
Yeah.
where I grew up. I actually started my professional career as a professional dancer. So I have a kind of a unique background. My dad's a professional actor and runs a theater in Los Angeles. My mom's a flight attendant. So I had this very sort of eclectic upbringing where I was traveling a lot and I was, sitting in many theater seats, watching my dad become different characters and telling different stories about other people's lives. And sometimes when he'd come home at night, wonder, is he my dad or is he that character that he was playing on the
Yeah.
stage,
I'll
as a
bet. I'll
child?
bet.
Yeah, my favorite memory, I don't know if it's favorite, but it burned into my brain, is he played Lenny in Mice and Men for
Oh,
many, many seasons in Kentucky. He was in regional theater, so he'd go all over the country and perform different shows. And Lenny, because Lenny at the end dies, right? And I watched that show so many times, so I have this like vivid memory of my dad dying over and over and over again, right? And I
no.
was a young child, right? So
Yeah.
I have this sort of um, probably fear of death, but also this connection to other people's journeys, other people's stories. So it was a way to get out of my four corners of the universe and experience life in a much bigger and broader way through my mother and her travels and through my dad and becoming different characters and telling different stories. So when I became a professional dancer, I was storytelling as well through my body. And that storytelling has become a value set of mine that I really hold near and dear because I really believe that uh, we as humans yearn for stories, yearn for passing down of knowledge through legacy stories of our families, of other families, of the journey of history. And so that's really near and dear to my heart, the storytelling element of life. And after becoming a professional dancer, I had that moment where I was like, I really need to expand my brain and get into college. And I did the infamous opposite of what most kids of my age, I was 18 years old, most kids of my age do, which I sat down with my choreographer, my parents, and I said, I know this is going to disappoint you, but I'm going to college. I am going to be quitting the professional dance company that I'm in, and I'm going to be going to a university. And I had done it all behind the scenes and uh, behind their backs, and it was like shock and awe. The opposite of what most kids go. I'm not going to college. I'm going to become a professional dancer. I did the opposite. I'm quitting my professional dance career, and I'm going to become a student in the education arena. So that was a fun conversation with my parents and with my choreographer at the time running the dance company that I was in. So from there, I really was like yearning for something completely opposite of the dance world. And I had a dance scholarship at the university that I was but I needed to get local tuition because I was from California. I was going to school in Arizona and I needed to get local tuition. So I decided to stay a summer and look for a job. And as I was walking through the mall, there was these bigwigs in suits standing in front of the Gap store. And I walked up and I said, I had like a baseball hat and sweats on. I was a college kid. And I said, hey, I'm looking for a job. Do you have an application? And they said, well, interesting. And I think I maybe told them a story at that moment, like I'm looking for a job because of XYZ. And this big wig, if you will, said, interesting, we're starting a new intern program for Gap Inc. at the time. It was a brand new intern program where you'd spend your last 2 years of university in doing a rotation of learning about what it means to run and be a leader of a retail store. And then from there, when you graduate, we'll move you out to San Francisco, and then you'll spend some time doing various rotations through production and marketing and operations and sales and all the things at the corporate office. So I said, sure, because I needed a job.
Yeah. Wow.
And there I sort of launched into 15 years later, I was in the retail world, right? I really experienced everything from the Gap Inc. brand, Banana Republic and Old Navy. And I was at the corporate office, I was in the field, I ran stores, I was a zone vice president, I was getting moved all around the country, around the world, doing different various projects for Gap Inc. So it was a really amazing 15 years. And I really learned the ins and outs of good leadership practice and good customer experiences and what it means to drive a strong brand into the ecosystem. But I always was yearning for laying my head down on the pillow and knowing that what I was contributing to was bigger than myself. And although I would make up things like, well, if people look good, they feel good. So if they like the jeans they're in, they look good, they feel good, and that contributes to a greater world. I realized quickly that I needed to do something where I could directly impact people's lives. And so I had a recruiter contact me, and then ensued my next couple of decades of the education space. So I did everything from supplemental tutoring to test prep to the nonprofit space where I was running after school programs for Arnold Schwarzenegger's nonprofit to a program where we were helping teachers become more effective in their craft. And then I was in the special education space. So I had this real diverse perspective on student learning and why learning is different for every student, everything from special education, after school, and the like. And so I got a call about a year and a half ago from this recruiter that said, hey, we've got this amazing STEM organization. You might not think you're a STEM head, but your diverse background is really what they're looking for. And so we spent a ton of hours having conversations and doing the interview process. And when they made me the offer, I really believed running a STEM company was exactly where I needed to be. And the reason for that is that SmartLab, where I'm the CEO of, is specifically about getting STEM identity for learners. And STEM identity isn't about science, technology, engineering, and math. What it's about is a STEM identity mindset. And STEM identity, as we've defined it, is about that a student's belief that they belong, they can master rigorous challenges, and their ideas add value. And for me, was my career, right? Like I had to fail a lot. I had to master a lot of rigorous challenges in order to get to the next level of success. And so to be a part of that for students was very exciting. To be a part of that for students that maybe think and learn differently, that come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, that come from different cultural backgrounds, to think about how students think and learn and how we need as a society to get them those durable skills in this AI-powered world so that they can be leaders in an AI-powered world rather than be led by it. So I'm very excited to be the CEO of SmartLab. I've been here for about a year and a half. We've done some really amazing things. We sell directly into school districts. We work really hard to make sure that we have corporate partners that are investing in school districts to put smart labs in so that this integrated ecosystem so they get this STEM identity through using STEM applications. And so they can be the future forward leaders of the future.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the extreme contrast. So when I hear your story, you take someone who's theatrical and a dancer and kind of,
Mhm.
way on one side of and now you're over here on the STEM side. So
Yeah.
it's
It's
really interesting.
fascinating, right? And people ask me all the time, like, would you say you have STEM identity? Because right, my company is getting, and I'm like, yeah. Think about it. There's no career out there. No career, no industry, no job where you're not using STEM applications. We're using STEM applications right now. We both have microphones, we both have our computers in front of us, right? You have an editing tool, perhaps, if you need to edit. Those are all STEM applications. There's not many careers out there, including in the arts, where we're not using STEM applications. So to have STEM identity really is the future, is the current and future of work, right? Because it isn't just about being a scientist. It isn't just about being a heads down technologist. It's really about having that mindset that you can master rigorous challenges. And I mentioned AI, and I actually think even more so now because AI can do most of the things that maybe back in the day, STEM leaders learning how to code, being in-depth coders, being in-depth in that could do. Now AI can do that for them. So we need higher level thinkers that can manage, that can ask rigorous questions, that can communicate well, that have critical thinking skills more so than ever, so that we can have those innate human abilities versus really kind of the tactical abilities that AI can accomplish for us.
Yeah, for sure. You know, when you were telling about your history there, it sparked a memory just to show you how long I've been around. I can remember going to the very first Banana Republic store in San Francisco.
Yeah.
It was like a safari thing, you know, it's like
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
place you go
We
to.
had sawdust on the floor. Sawdust
Exactly.
on the floor. You remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was awesome. And so
Yeah.
it changed.
Yeah.
Also, I just wanted to highlight too, you talked about storytelling and I believe that, you know, in leadership, storytelling is a very integral tool and the ones that are
Mm,
good at it just have better ability to communicate with people because I totally agree. You know, people remember stories more than words and
mhm,
or more than you know graphs and numbers and
mhm,
you know, just the spreadsheet type of stuff. So
mhm.
storytelling is very important, and so yeah, that resonates with me as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that because you think the one unique, well, not one, but one of the many, or one of the unique things about humans is our emotional, tapping into emotional intelligence, and emotions get tapped into through story.
Yeah.
So, mhm,
So you said that you went back to school, and I think you got a doctorate in organizational change and
mhm,
leadership at USC.
mhm.
So
Yep.
tell us a little bit about what that academic experience, how that shaped the way you think now that was maybe
Mhm.
differently before. So give us a little background on that.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, I'm a person that always wants to learn, right? Both my parents are constantly saying the one thing they know to be true is they don't know much of anything, and that everything is evolving and changing. And those of us that want to lean into that and say, you know what, the way my thinking was yesterday might be, can be, and potentially revised and revamped today if I ask more questions and I learn and I study, has always really set into my brain. And so I've just constantly always wanted to learn, right? I got my master's in public administration, kind of learned that world. And there was a moment in time where I thought, you know, I've been a leader. I was a chief operating officer at After School All Stars, which is a nonprofit run by or founded and led by Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I was yearning for a more formal approach to leadership, right? I had done it a lot through gut, through experience, through learning from others, which is a really good way of doing it. But I knew there was some best practices that I was maybe missing, some faster ways to get from point A to point B that maybe organizationally could help me drive a business to scale and or to be sustainable in a faster and more sustainable way. And so I just was really craving that. And I looked around and applied to USC, got into this organizational change and leadership doctorate program. And what that did for me is grounded me in theory, where I could look at actual practices that I was living and breathing and trying and experiencing and match it with a theory that was sort of the book knowledge and the tried and true academia of how organizations could and should be run. And that matchup for me was really, really, really powerful because I got to see, like, oh, that's why that happened 10 years ago for my organization when I saw the theory in practice, right? And it also gave me ways to put the theory to the test in a real life scenario. So I'd be reading or learning about something theoretical about driving business forward faster or about organizational systems and structured and systems thinking. And I would apply it immediately to something we were going through in the organization. And I was like blown away by how fast I could get traction or how fast I could get the outcome to be what I was yearning for. So I really felt like that academia meets practical use, right? So not just the academia and the knowledge of it, and not just the practical practice of it, but the matching of the two really served. And I was able to get results faster. I was able to get uh, uh, people to buy in quicker
Yeah.
because there was a theory of practice rooted in the way in which I was approaching business decisions. So that was a really great experience for me. And I wrote my dissertation on representation in young children's media, actually, which is completely opposite of anything I was doing. I was really looking and yearning to tap into something that could be of service to the world. And I really had found the importance of representation as a female leader. And I had a young daughter at the time. She's 11 now, but she was much younger when I was doing my doctoral program. And I felt like, wow, I want her to have representation of what it could be and what it could look like other than maybe what was out there. And so I wrote this dissertation, and then took some of those learnings and practices and put it into my organization to make sure that I was allowing seats at the table so that we could have a diversity of thought, diversity of perspective, whether it's through age, whether it's through race, whether it's through gender, so that we could collectively be a better at decision making and better society at large.
As a segue into this next part, I want to go into kind of when do we start all this and childhood learning and so on. When you go back to your 18-year-old self, do you
Mm.
think that you were strategically advanced to know that that body wouldn't last? As a physical therapist, I know as a professional dancer, you can probably only go so long as a professional dancer.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you decided to ditch that and go into the business world. So do you think that was strategic, or how do you look at that decision back then?
Yeah, it's funny because in that moment that I sat my parents down and sat my choreographer down and told them, I'm going to college. Shock and awe, right? While I did had that moment, that was exactly what they said. They said, "Listen, a dancer's body isn't going to last past 25. You got to just go, you got to keep going for another 5 years and then go into the business world." And for me, it wasn't about the strategic decision of can my body withstand this? It was where my brain and heart were telling me. Like I needed to do more than just the physical movement. And maybe because I was dancing at such a young age and I was in a professional company at such a young age, my body had gone through a lot already. Right. And so I think there was more of a mental thing of like, no, I need to flex this brain muscle. And not that dance doesn't flex a brain muscle, because it absolutely does, but I need to take it to a different academia level. And so I was more focused on like what this needed, much less what my body needed. But maybe deep down there was a strategic moment of like, yeah, my body's done. I've been worked way too hard for way too long, and so I can't wait till I'm 25. I need to do this now.
Well, probably, I mean, it's kind of brilliant in a way, and it's probably set you up for your long-term thinking and how you run businesses and so on in the future. So
Hmm.
I think it's interesting. But
Yeah, I will say though, I still have hip and feet problems.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
You have a strong conviction that workplace or workforce readiness starts in childhood, and this is something I've asked this question all the time
Mm.
on this program. So if we know that, why don't we start the leadership training and some of these things earlier? I mean, grade school, middle school, high school. It seems like so much of leadership training or leadership development starts
Mm.
after you've been in business for a long time.
Yeah.
And when are we going to figure this out, I guess is my question.
Yeah, well, that's what SmartLab does, truly, starting in kindergarten. So I agree. I think that we need to, especially now, I think before even, but even especially now with how AI, like when I think about my own learning, right? Back when we were kids, we would learn, memorize, repeat, test, forget. Right? That was sort of the cycle. Or maybe we remembered a little bit of it, but mostly it was learn, memorize, test, right? And then move on. And now most of the things we're learning can be done for us, or we can just ask a quick question into our phone or into our computer and it's going to spit out the answer for us. So we don't actually have to recall things as much as you and I had to recall or go to get microfiche in the computer room, right, to find the answer. You don't actually have to do that as much anymore or at all anymore. And so I really believe that schools, both, whatever school, whether you're public, private, charter, micro schools, homeschool, need to really think about preparing students for the future. And sure, it's called workforce development, but I actually think it's about preparing students to have these durable skills that are going to translate well in leadership, that will translate well in the careers, or maybe even careers that haven't even been invented yet, right? So it's this thinking. So I mentioned that, I run this company, SmartLab, and we have what's called an integrated. This integrated ecosystem is all rooted in not just the environment, the kits and equipment, the curriculum, the support, and the facilitator that facilitates this, but it's rooted in this idea that everything you're doing is about solving a problem that's connected to an industry, right? So we have industry pathways, whether it's manufacturing or entertainment or um, I've got a list here: arts and entertainment, finance, business, entrepreneurship, health science, transportation, distribution, logistics. I could go through the list, right? Every problem that we have a student, even in kindergarten, solving through STEM applications, we connect to an industry pathway. So a small example is even our kindergarten unit, one of our kindergarten units that is about learning how to just do basic coding, right? They build a robot and then they code it to drive right, left, just basic coding, a kindergartner. We don't just say learn how to do this. We say learn how to do this because your goal is to try to get food from the farm to a store for somebody to buy, like your mom or your dad to buy to get onto the table. And so at an early age, at 5, we're having a child think about, oh, I'm learning how to use this, build this robot, code this robot for a reason, for a point, so that I can think about how to get it from point A to point B, but not just to do that for fun, but to make that fun to solve a world problem, right? Or an industry problem. And that just small example is so important for kids. Because if you're in school and all you're learning is your math facts, all you're learning is basic reading skills, which are all important, and we need all kids to learn their basic math facts and how to read. But you're not learning how to think critically. You're not learning how to like build something and it's not working. And you're like, why isn't this working? Oh, I've got to figure out how to build this to make it work, but also to solve a problem, how to get this food from point A to point B. Those sort of connections to industry pathways are really important. That is what SmartLab does. But also, I'm with you. I think that we need to do more and more of that, and even in the classroom, like having teachers think about whatever they're teaching, connecting it to real world problems, connecting it to hands-on problem solving that is meaningful, not just learn it to learn's sake, but learn it to build leadership skills, learn it to build thinking that is going to translate or be transferable to the job of your future.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think that our education system, and in my own experience, it's very task oriented.
Hmm.
This, you check the box. You do this, you check the box. You
That's right.
memorize it. You do this, you do this. And then you're thrown out into the world, and now you're supposed to be a right brain thinker
Yeah.
and think of, how do I deal with all these emotions and people,
Yes.
human things? And so I agree that if we can get more of that, it even brings me back to, I'd be interested to, since you're an expert in this field, even something like a bully in school,
Hmm. Hmm.
if kids knew how to support each other and work
Hmm.
together and be part of a team and have leadership, type of things, sometimes I wonder if that bully could be stopped earlier with that kind of peer support if they knew what to do than not.
Well, I love that because bullies generally have a reason they're a bully. It might be because of a family issue. It might be because of a learning difference. It might be because of some trauma that they have in their life, right? Generally, a bully is a bully for a reason, right?
Right.
And most of us don't know what that is. And when you put kids in an environment where they have to work together to solve a problem, generally the bully hat comes off because they want to be a part of the solution and be a part of the team. And especially if they can add their own unique voice into it, right? When you're an individual learning, that's great because you need to learn at your pace. But when you're put into a group and one person is like, well, I have more, uh, linear thinking. And so I'm going to add to this team by my linear process. And you have another person that's like, well, I'm the spokesperson for this group because I'm a communicator and they are adding value to the group, right? That's when you see these bullies realize like, oh, I can add value here, right?
Yeah.
That's why we say STEM identity is about I belong and I add value and I can master rigorous challenges. That's how we define it. Because if you have this STEM identity and you happen to be a bully, you're like, oh, I have STEM identity. I add value. I can be a part of this group by adding my own unique value to this. And then that bully hat falls off to the table because you're a part of something bigger than yourself.
Yeah. I can remember a personal story as if it happened the other day. So I'm in
Mm,
sixth grade. I had a male sixth grade teacher. And, so one of the kids who wasn't very popular and kind of dorky or whatever you want to call it made some
yeah.
comment. And then I came back with a comment and everybody laughed. And the kid,
Mm,
felt about, 2 inches tall. And the teacher
yeah.
called me back to the back of the room and he said, Steve, he goes, here's the deal. He goes, you're a pretty good student. You're a good athlete. You're kind of a popular kid. Everybody looks up to you.
Mm,
So when you say something, it means a lot. So you just took that kid who was stretching out a little bit and you just
mm,
knocked him down. And he
mm,
said, it should be the opposite. You should do something to bring that kid up. And I'll never forget it. And
yeah.
it was just like such an eye opener to me. And I
Hmm.
really do think it helped transform me into always looking to help people grow and help people bring up and do whatever. And it took one teacher's comment. So again, I totally think that we need to think long term
Mm,
and why Smart Lab is so cool because it's like, okay, we're thinking long term here. We're putting things in kids in front of them and whatever that will help them not just get through the sixth grade, but
hmm.
for life and how to be in business and how to be in our communities and so on. And it's just so
Hmm.
valuable.
Yeah, what that teacher did for you is have a valuable empathy coaching moment, right?
Yeah,
They taught you
absolutely.
empathy. They had you put yourself in that other child's shoes. And although you got validation through everyone laughing, right? That was a validation moment for you. She or he got to you and said, "Hey, but think about how that person felt in that moment." And then that shift for you was really powerful. And you can do that through problems that you put in front of students that they have to solve together, right? And that's also the hands-on learning part that I think is so important that we at SmartLab do, right? Because many students think different, right? You talked about being an athlete and I was a dancer. Like I was moving all the time. I could not sit still in my chair because I needed to move my body, right? And so had I had a SmartLab as a kid, that would have been everything because I could have gotten up, been physical with building something, moving something, and not just sitting in a chair tethered where I was going crazy and then my brain was, maybe thinking about something else. So that hands-on learning style, I think, is really important because then the kid that is more uh, sort of introverted and they can sit at that same group table and be, maybe doing the coding, writing down the coding, and they're getting their introvert side done. And then you've got the person that needs to move is like the one building it, right? And then the communicator is communicating about it. And so it's bringing all the skills together, which you and I know is what builds a good business, right? A good business is where you have many different perspectives and abilities at a table. If everybody was introverted and everybody was shy and everybody was just an engineer type thinker at a company, it would probably have a dead end, right? But
Oh,
if
yeah.
you bring in a particular leader that is a great, strong communicator, you bring in a particular leader that is a thinker. You bring in a communicator that is an operator. You bring in a communicator that's a people person and has those empathy skills rooted. That's what builds a great organization. And so we're trying to manufacture that with 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 18-year-olds, right? We're manufacturing those little micro moments so they can learn how to work with others and think like business leaders for the future.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of brings up a few things to mind, like, in the education system, a lot of time it's to conform. The
Mm,
whole goal is to conform to the norm, so to speak. But as you just said, we all know that greater things happen when we look outside the box. And so,
yeah,
I
yeah.
love the statement like there's more than one right answer, or
Mm,
there are different ways can get you to the same end result,
mhm,
So we have to be open to that because we learn in different ways, we do things in different ways. Some of us,
mhm.
as you just said, are more action oriented, some are more intellectually oriented, so bringing those diverse groups together usually ends up the collective wisdom that comes from that is usually better than any one person can come up with.
Yeah, and I think companies and individuals that are thinking about how can I be a part of the solution right now? How can I be a part of contributing to the greater society, right? Both bringing their own unique qualities to the table, but also rising up the next generation of leaders. Um, I think investing in school districts in this way is the key, right? It isn't about necessarily it's almost a form of activism. My form of activism right now is investing in young people because they're the future. So I don't see workforce development as philanthropy. I see workforce development as a necessity. And that is really important for me to share with business leaders, companies, foundations, philanthropists. It's like if you have money and you want to give to the larger society, invest in young people, invest in this workforce development aspect, and do it in a way that helps students have these micro moments, these manufactured moments of collaboration and hands-on project-based ways to get their STEM identity so that when they come into the workforce, they are the leaders of the future. And they don't just have the intellect, but they have the emotional intelligence to handle the AI intelligence that's out there.
I wonder how you are perceived, because you just said you have a very diverse background and we see that as a positive. But on the other hand, too, how are you embraced or not embraced in the education world? Because you're not an educator. It's not like you've been in the trenches teaching the kids in a school. So do they look at you as like, oh, maybe she doesn't know exactly how hard it is, or is there resistance to the smart lab ideas or philosophies, based on the fact that you know how it is when somebody comes in from the outside, our first reaction,
Sure.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds great, but in the practical world, I'm not sure that works.
Yeah, well, I've been in the education space for over 2 decades, so that helps, right? I've been helping teachers become more effective in their craft. I've been in the nonprofits after school space. I've been in the supplemental education space for students. I've been in the special education space in the K-12 side. So I don't think and my doctorate's in organizational change and leadership under the education department at USC. So I've got an education doctorate. So the I think most people see that as like, okay, she gets it, right? She's dealt with teachers, she's dealt with students, she's dealt with neurodiversity, she's dealt with after school programs. So that part. But truthfully, I work very hard to make sure that the leaders of my product and development team and the leaders of the team that are running the customer care unit of our organization have educational backgrounds because they're the ones talking to the customers. They're the ones building the curriculum and putting the kits and equipment together and teaching the facilitators how to be the best in front of students, how to ask those productive struggle questions for students to be able to thrive. And so I work very hard to make sure that I hire um, leading STEM experts. We
Mhm.
have a STEM advisory board of leading STEM educators and researchers across the country that help advise even on our product development set. So I work very hard to make sure that I'm the CEO of the company, but the people that are building the guts of what we're delivering to students are educators and came from the classroom, came from being administrators, came from being STEM experts. experts. And then we make sure that we do a lot of validation of it in the background. We have Johns Hopkins University right now doing an efficacy study of our program so that we can validate this claim that students start with X level of STEM identity and end with X level of higher STEM identity when they finish a SmartLab program. So we really make sure that it isn't just words and that we're putting the experts uh, in the program development and then hiring experts to validate that.
Yeah, that makes sense. How many employees do you have in your company?
So over the country, we have over 700 labs, and so we have facilitators in all of those labs. As far as full-time staff, we have about a little under 50 at this time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. All right. You mentioned it earlier, and I think it's really interesting if you think about it. We are educating kids throughout the, K through 12 and beyond now
Hmm.
for jobs that we don't even know exist. Well,
That's right.
it's like we don't even know what those jobs are going to be,
Yeah.
which I think is a new frontier.
Mhm.
So, so how do you deal with that?
Yeah. Jobs, I agree. Industries also, there's probably going to be some new industries out there as well, but the majority of industries that we all know about probably aren't just going to go away tomorrow, right? Like manufacturing and agriculture and energy and construction, architecture, right? Education, training, entertainment. The industry pathways are probably not going away. The jobs within those industry pathways, are going to move and morph and um, so how we deal with that is saying when you're trying to solve a problem, we're building these durable skills that'll be transferable into any industry or into any potential job today or tomorrow. So we deal with it more about that's why we focus so much on STEM identity, not the STEM application. We use STEM applications to teach students how to use STEM applications because we're a STEM company and we believe in project hands-on learning. But we're not so focused on the STEM application. And instead, we're focused on how are you using this STEM application to solve this industry problem? And that actually could be a new job that a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old is creating just by that experience alone in that industry. So again, we focus more on the durable skills, which again are translatable or transferable into any industry and any job of tomorrow. And when you teach kids how to master rigorous challenges, they come up with ideas that we adults would never think of because we're so conditioned for the way in which things have been done for so many years. And kids come up with the most amazing ideas that you might not have ever thought of. And so with the insertion of AI, and we actually even build AI into our curriculum, but we build it into our curriculum at the right time. We don't start with AI questions. We use AI and build it into helping a student think about how to scale a thing that they've already discovered or created, or to ask questions that get that problem solved at a deeper root level instead of the first thing they go to. We're trying to teach them how to use AI to enhance and their ability to think. So I would say it isn't about um, the jobs that we don't even know yet. That's the exciting part. The exciting part is helping these kids get these durable skills so that they create the jobs that we don't even know about, so that they become the creators and the leaders of that versus it happening to them.
I get the sense that this business model that you have isn't something that you create and then you just insert into a company and they go with it. This is a very partnership oriented, takes a lot of collaboration. You're having to work with people, that are in the school system and so on. So I would assume that there's a real leadership skill there that keeps this collaboration going forward and everybody working together and everybody moving forward. So would you identify it as that, and how do you keep that going so that you continue to grow, building those kind of relationships?
Yeah, it's key. Um, we sell an integrated ecosystem. We don't just sell STEM kits, right? Many people are like, "Well, can you just sell us a STEM kit, and we'll roll it out to our kids?" And we're like, "No, it's not what we sell." Right? We sell this entire ecosystem, everything from the STEM kids to the curriculum, to the training of your facilitator, to the environment, to the support and partnership. And what you're talking about is partnership. These are their five components of our ecosystem. Partnership is critical. It's partnership with the school district, it's partnership with the teachers, it's partnership with the outside businesses so that outside businesses can come in and share their STEM identity with students so students can see themselves as future leaders in those industries. It's outside companies partnering with us to give schools money in order to bring SmartLab into their school district because school districts have a limited budget, right? The federal government, the state government, and the local government give school districts X amount of dollars, and then the superintendent and the principals have to make value choices and or choices based on their school's needs, whether it's based on the enrollment needs they have or their special education needs they have, right? Or their new curriculum development needs that they have, their professional development for their teachers needs they have. So there's many competing parts, and they have a very limited budget to do that. However, if outside businesses partner and not only give their company employees time in the school districts to share their knowledge with kids and to work with them in these STEM-based applications and teach them about STEM identity and share with them their journey, but also give money to these school districts so that they say, hey, I'm going to give you this money, school district, so you can put in 10 smart labs in your school, right? And we have plenty of business partners that do that. And so with us, companies that are like, we want to be a part of this workforce development and these kids of the future having the STEM identity. So we're going to give money to school districts, but we're going to demand that they put in smart labs. Well, to your point, that takes a lot of juggling. That takes a lot of finessing. That takes a lot of managing. And again, we just hire really great, smart people that understand how to pull people together, how to give partners what they want in order to make sure they're getting the value for what they're investing in these school districts. Make sure that they feel like their brand is being recognized, that their money is being shepherded in a positive and ethical way so that the schools are getting what they need and that they're over time and these students are getting the workforce development skills that they desire with their resources. So that takes a lot of managing, coordinating, relationship building, and I feel that that is, again, a skill that I want students to learn now so that when they come out and are business leaders, they know how to handle that. Because no AI robot's going to be able to manage a bunch of different partners. Because there's also an emotional intelligence aspect of that as well.
And not to put any additional pressure on you and your company, but it just seems to me that as you just described that and all the pieces and all the parts, I mean, you're basically building communities. You're building,
Hmm.
the people that are in your area, communities for the future. And that's not only beautiful, but that's a big ask. So
Yeah, yeah.
you feel that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big ask. I feel really passionate about that though. Like I mentioned, this is my version of activism, and my version of activism is to help students um, become the better versions of themselves and be strong contributors to society. And in order to do that, you have to do it from the inside out and the outside in. Right? And the inside out is to make sure every school has a smart lab so that these students can do project hands-on learning in this way, and that's the inside out. But the outside in is making sure that the community is investing time, resources into that so that it's a community development effort, no matter what your zip code is. So that's really important to us as an organization that we're not just giving schools something and then walking away and saying, here you go, good luck with that, but that we're saying, we want to give you this gift and we want to um, make sure that it's sustainable over time. And we believe you do that from the outside in, making sure that the community is coming in and ensuring that these kids are set up for success, using the curriculum, using the hands-on tools and equipment, thinking and pushing their STEM identity abilities. So yeah, it's a big endeavor and not for the faint of heart,
Yeah.
but an important endeavor to make sure that we're contributing in a way that's productive for society at large.
When you look back over your career at your leadership positions and all that you've been involved in, what's the hardest leadership lesson you ever had to learn the hard way?
Yeah, the one that always pops to mind, I have two, but I'm going to give one story, a brief example. But the one that always comes to mind, that was a real early lesson in my early leadership career is that you can't be always the Pied Piper manager, right? I had this unique ability as a young leader in the retail world where my personality people wanted to follow that because they were, oh, I want to be a part of that energy. I want to be a part of that passion. And so my personality was leading the charge. What I found when I was a store manager of a store, that worked because I was the one leader in the building that everybody followed. When I then became a regional manager and I had to run multiple stores and I'd go back to that one store that I was at, I'm like, how come this place fell apart? And they're like, because you're not here every day, right?
Yeah,
And I realized quickly that it can't be about one person. It can't be about one gregarious leader that can drive energy forward. It has to be about good systems, good accountability, good process, and constant coaching of the leaders after you and mentoring of the leaders after you to own their own version of motivation for their team and staff. So that was a very hard but good lesson in my early career because I couldn't understand early why people wouldn't just do it my way. And then I realized quickly that's just not the way it works. And um, in order for things to be sustainable, it has to be set on a strong foundation, not just the leader's voice. So that was a good early lesson. A more tenured hard lesson was a bit of the opposite, right? Meaning I needed to make sure that because I was a chief operating officer for so many years, I think like an operator, and so I'm always operationalizing everything, and so I needed to when I became into the CEO seat, realized that my role is more the vision and mission and voice of the organization, not necessarily the down and dirty operational
right,
driver. And so that was a similar lesson, but a really good recent lesson for me to realize that my hands don't need to be in every single operational process of the organization. Um, and that as a CEO, I need to sort of lift up and trust the team that I've hired, hire the right people, and then trust them to do their jobs and not get in the mix of things. And so that was a
right.
good recent lesson that I learned, and one that I think has really served me. And I'm settling into like I don't need to know everything. I don't need to know all of the ins and outs of how things are done. Um, and temper my disappointment if things don't get done exactly the way I would have done it.
For sure. And it's a great example of how we need to always train the people that we're leading,
Mm,
also be able to step up and lead because you're
yeah.
not always going to be there. You're going to move on. And as you said, if you leave and the place implodes, then you didn't do your
You
job.
didn't do your job.
You
You
didn't
didn't do your job.
you
Right.
didn't
That early lesson taught me to be a better operator because I had to make sure the operational. But now my later lesson is, okay, now I can let go of the reins a little bit and not have to be so operational. So it's a really good bookend learning for me in my career.
Thanks for sharing that. That was great. You're young, you still got a lot to go. I'm not implying that at all, but what do you think? What do you want your legacy to be at SmartLab?
Two things. I want my legacy to be that we have clearly defined the STEM identity, and are living that and proving that out in school districts. And then on the internal front, I want to leave an organization, and people always say this, leave it better than you found it, but I want to have this organization not only passionate about what we're delivering for kids, but rooted in this idea that anything is possible with collective energy. And that's been a really fun journey for me over this last year and a half because this company's been around for almost 40 years. So it's already a sustainable organization. But the organization prior was selling stuff to school districts, which was great stuff. And students were getting some amazing things from what they were given. But it was up to the school district to take it once we delivered it to that level. My legacy is that I want us to be involved over time. I don't want to just sell and dump and leave. I want us to be, we're your partner school district. Once you sign up with SmartLab, we're your partner into your sustainable future. So that legacy is really important to me, that we're not just selling things and walking away, but we're selling things and we become the school district's partners in ensuring their kids are getting their STEM identity over time.
And you're also changing societal norms, wouldn't you say, as a woman,
Mm,
girls and young girls and also women weren't what's the word I want? Encouraged to go into STEM education. It was kind of,
yes,
it was more of a man's world, and so
that's right.
I think we're seeing some change, right? Do you feel like we're making progress there?
Yeah, we're definitely making progress. But but not fast enough, in my opinion. I still think there's studies and examples where women are further behind in the STEM fields. Uh, but that's also why it doesn't have to be a STEM field. It's every field, it's every industry. And STEM identity is shouldn't be just a particular industry or just a gendered career. It's a mindset, and a mindset translates to any industry. So that helps girls, it helps different socioeconomic background individuals, different cultures, different races realize like I belong here. I belong here because I think like that. I can master rigorous challenges. I've been through a lot in my life, and therefore that a lot in the life has taught me how to be a systems thinker. Systems thinker is STEM identity. Oh, okay. I can have a seat at that table. So I, I am trying to change society too. That's also a little bit of it. And as a woman leader, obviously, women empowerment is really near and dear to my heart. But really, it's about that mindset and getting rid of that notion that STEM is just for this type of person, maybe male, maybe just this level of a way of which a person thinks, and instead a mindset that you gain these durable skills to be functioning in any industry and in any career.
Sure. We've covered a lot of ground, but I just want, in anticipation of our discussion today, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want to be sure and get in the program today?
No, Steve, the only thing I would add that I encourage people to reach out to us. If you're inspired by, I want to be a part of the workforce development movement. I want to be a part of getting kids these hands-on project-based learning opportunities so that they get these durable skills, they gain their STEM identity so they can be the future leaders that we need and they can lead in the AI powered world, not be led by it. If you're somebody that was inspired by that, if you're a company that's inspired by that, please reach out to us. We have school districts across the country that want SmartLab in their districts, but maybe can't afford it. And so we need help. We need help of individuals, companies that are like, I want to be a part of this. Or if you have employees that you're saying, oh, my employees would love to come in and give their STEM identity stories to young people. Time and resources are what these school districts need. And we talked a lot about inside out and outside in and getting communities into schools and in with students to educate and show them. To me, this is the best way to do it. It's hard for a company to think, how could I get my employees involved? Are they going to like read to kids? What are they going to do? But to say, I'm going to come in and do a project with a kid with a cool robot, or I'm going to show them how we do manufacturing, that is something I really encourage people, if you're inspired by this, to give us a call because we can hook you up with school districts across the country where you can say, I want to be a part of that. I want to have my employees put their time in, and I want my company's resources to put smart labs in. We'd be happy to help. So smartlablearning.com. You can always reach out to me, Dr. Jennifer Berry, on LinkedIn, and we'd be happy to hook you up with some school districts and help you demand getting smart lab into them.
That's great. At this point in the interview, I always ask my guests the same common question, and that question is, in relation to leadership, what is a pearl of wisdom that you could leave us with today?
Never stop learning.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a great one. Well, Dr. Berry, thanks so much for your time today. It's a fascinating field. I think it's so necessary in our society and as we move forward in school districts as well as businesses. And it sounds like you're doing great work in the world. So thank you for sharing all that with us today and appreciate your time very much.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate you too. Thanks for such good questions and commentary. I appreciate you.
Okay, well, take care. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye bye. Okay.